Hello out there, all you wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for joining me for another Pitch for Switch discussion. This time is going to be another original concept, and that is Gladiator, which is to say just taking gladiatorial games, combat sports, and stuff like that, and applying the Mii's to it. Now, obviously, you want this to be able to be played by children, so you want it to be more cartoon violence and not have bloodshed and everything, and I doubt Nintendo would want Mii's bleeding. But still, just the thought of having Mii's in gladiatorial combat sports, like the show Gladiator, or with the idea of what they did with Wii Sports Resort, almost said Wii Sports Resort, where you could play with the sword and you were fighting a drove of Mii's to get through to whatever your goal was. They could do all of that in this game, just like a bunch of those things. And then somebody's going to say, well, that could just be Wii Sports or Mii Sports because it's not Wii anymore. But still, they could have a focus on gladiatorial combat, like something like what, including something sort of like what the Spartacus game on the 360 was. I think it was also on the PS3. It was a free-to-play game Ubisoft put out. But have it so that you could have like the sword and shield combat, where you're battling through droves of people, or where you can have two players pitted against each other and one person's on the opposite side of the screen from the other. They could do it that way and also have the double-handed sword combat where you're facing each other on the screen, or even with two different switches where you could be facing each other with the two switches sitting across from each other and fighting each other, just for like the additional fun of it, where the characters will move back and forth on their own, and then you're just trying to get in the sword strikes or whatever. Then they could also do like the Gladiator games where you had the double-sided, I always called them the Q-tip. I don't know what the technical name is for them, but everybody should know what I'm talking about, where you had the double-sided staff. It's just a simple staff with like big Q-tip pieces on it. But have something like that where you could have 2, 3, 4, 5 players trying to knock each other off of like these very narrow platforms, playing against each other. You could have like indirect combat, like unarmed combat. I don't know why I said indirect. Unarmed combat, where players are taking each other on directly. You could even throw in boxing, or make it like sort of like I guess MMA would fit, like where it's not focused on one particular sport, but there would have to be some sort of augmentations made, or something like where you could have like a leg strap that you could put on for 2 additional Joy-Cons and then have 2 in your hands, stuff like that. That would have to be like max 2 players, because a Switch can only handle up to 8 of those controllers connected to it at once. They could also have like aiming games, like the Gladiator show, where you had the obstacle course and you were trying to avoid being hit by somebody who's aiming and shooting down at you. That could be done with a multitude of different people. Like you could have one person be the gunner shooting at everybody, and have everybody else play from the perspective of trying to get to that person. And with 2 switches, you'll have a full screen for one person and a full screen for another. Again, this is just me just thinking all this stuff out loud. And you could have all this stuff be playable online, and it would be fun. You could have online leaderboards. You could have people playing against each other online at the same time. They could make an esport out of it. It would be something that would be fun. It'd be interesting, and it could really be played up to see who's the best skilled at each individual game per se, like unarmed combat or MMA or boxing, any of those sports, close range weaponry. Who's better at long distance weapons? Any of that stuff. And it's something that could be fun for everybody to play. It could be a game used for people to take their frustrations out on. They're like, hey, you have a disagreement, you're mad at each other, play the game. Play this game and take your frustrations out on the game rather than the other person. It honestly would be a healthy stress reliever for a lot of people. And on top of that, it could be something you could laugh over. It could also drum up rivalries and friendships and families. But at the same time, again, I think in the long run, it would be more enjoyable for people than it would cause relationships to fail like Mario Party and Mario Kart do. But that's just my personal perspective. I mean, to me, the concept is good. I think it would be something that would be fascinating for Nintendo to dive into and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and see if we can do all these things. Because honestly, there's nothing saying in particular that anybody owns, at least as far as I know, that anybody owns any particular rights to a specific type of sport if Nintendo tweaks it enough that it's different. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but if it's tweaked enough, I mean, just conceptually be the same, but not be exactly the same as what actual Gladiator did, the actual TV show did, and then just have a multitude of different ways that characters could combat each other. Like whether it's a competition of skill where you're trying to be the best at doing something, or direct competition against each other where you have to beat the other person. I mean, they're all competitions of skill technically, but there's a difference between pummeling somebody and then, being superior to them at a particular sport or course or something like that. I mean, they can also throw in stuff that's kind of similar to Ninja Warrior. The Ninja Warrior courses for the Miis, where you have to try to, again, do the best at the obstacle course. A lot of this stuff could be implemented into a single game, where they can have like 10 or 15 different iterations of each game that you can play, or levels to each game. Something like the obstacle course, you can have a ton of those. Or like the gladiatorial course where you have a gunner trying to take other people out. Again, that could have multiple versions of it, where each station has a weapon that you can use, and you have to try to be accurate or get a certain number of hits before the gunner is taken down. Again, it's all conceptually something that would be fun, and I think a lot of people could get into. It's just up to Nintendo to possibly do it, or to pass it off to a third party and let them do it. But hey, that's it. Thank you guys very much for listening. Keep your eyes and ears out for more stuff from me, and until the next time, enjoy your games and peace out.